As the turkey coma starts to wear off, let's turn our attention to the Egg Bowl. We're just a few short hours away from it, and we are going to talk about it over the next half hour or so. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm Stephen Willis, and I'm likely the only person that you're going to hear from today that has had an office in the Manning Center at Ole Miss and has worked in the national media for Yahoo Sports. Thank you very much for joining me today. Today on the show, we talked about all we learned this week, and I let you know what Ole Miss will face against the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Everydayers know how I look at football games and simply don't think and don't believe that throw out the records is a real thing. It's only a ploy to help the underdog. Ole Miss must avoid that trap tonight. In fact, it might be the most important key. As I mentioned, I'm Stephen Willis, and this is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're free and available on all your podcast and apps and YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the everydayers who make the show what it is. Now, this is going to be an interesting type football game. It is, and it's not going to be a situation to where Ole Miss should be in any danger in this game. But this is a test where if Mississippi State were to pull an upset over this Ole Miss team, this would be the biggest upset in this series in the last 40 or 50 years. That is the reality of what is going on in this football game. Ole Miss is having to come out and perform their best and do the things that they have to do. But at the end of the day, talent should be superior. I do not believe, like I said before, I do not believe in throw out the records. I do not believe in anything can happen. I do not believe in any of that stuff. It is a ploy designed by the underdog to make the favorite play down to their competition so weird stuff can happen. And 9 times out of 10, it does not. 9 times out of 10, the most talented team wins this football game, whether it's Ole Miss or State. But that 1 out of 10 is what Ole Miss has to guard against in this football game. If you go back and look at Ole Miss's keys that I put out during the week, I think Jackson Dart, Quinshon Judkins, and Trey Harris must show out. It's a star game. The Egg Bowl traditionally is a star football game. Your stars have to perform. Ole Miss has to find the right offensive line combinations. If you look around the internet, there's a whole bunch of, is Jaden Williams playing? Is he not playing? What's going to happen there? Is Lane Kiffin kind of doing a ploy to Mississippi State? Is the offensive line going to look like it did against Louisiana Monroe? All of those questions is probably the area that Ole Miss fans are worried about the most in this game. Again, avoid the anything that can happen trap game. I just don't believe in that at all. What you need to watch for in this game is Pete Golding has shut down bad offenses in 2023. If your offense is not good, Pete Golding has shut you down. He has 5 games out of 11 where he's held the other team under 300 total yards. Now, there were 2 games this year that Ole Miss got completely outmatched against the other team's offense and their defense. That was against LSU and that was against Georgia. And honestly, you could probably argue for the second half against Texas A&M. There was a matchup problem. There's a talent issue. But when Pete Golding has seen bad defenses or bad offenses or mid offenses, he has completely shut them down. Quinshon Judkins will be a key factor in this year's Egg Bowl. He's going to potentially set the all-time single-season rushing record for touchdowns against Mississippi State or in the bowl game. He only needs 2 to tie the record that he set a year ago. He will be big. And also, no artificial swings and momentum should be the goal. I am perfectly okay with every possession ending with a kick. If every possession ends with a kick, I think Ole Miss will be all right. Now, if you look at why I think Ole Miss will win this game, I think Ole Miss has the 5 best offensive players in this game. There's not a player on Mississippi State's offense that would start on Ole Miss's offense, which means Ole Miss is capable of winning a shootout. If it gets into a shootout, it's advantage Ole Miss. Mississippi State has fewer and fewer ways that they can actually win this football game, and a shootout is definitely not going to be one of them. A low-scoring plotted out, muck it up type game, that is Mississippi State's path to an upset. If Ole Miss's offense gets off at all, Mississippi State doesn't have much of a chance. The biggest mismatch in this game is probably going to be the Ole Miss wide receivers against the Mississippi State secondary. Quarterbacks all year have feasted on the Mississippi State secondary, including a third stringer from Western Michigan that put up like 80 to 85% completion percentage in his game in Starkville. That will be something to watch. And this is where Mississippi State's going to have some issues. This is a chance for Ole Miss to get to 11 wins this season for the first time in program history. And Ole Miss wanting to do that and needing style points for their beauty pageant with the Missouri Tigers, and we're going to talk about that in the second segment a little bit, is going to be a key thing as well. My prediction for the game, obviously, I have Ole Miss winning 38-14. This is a game that I think Ole Miss, through script writing, takes control of this game, and Ole Miss kind of puts the foot on the gas. The interim coach thing happens, and they eventually pull away. It's 38-14. That's actually not real dissimilar to what we got from Mississippi State writers as well. So that is my quick review of what Ole Miss is facing this weekend. The main injury thing you're going to hear is like Willie or one named Jackson Dart. Chris Lowe put that out. Jackson Dart's going to play. He's talking like he's going to play. I don't think there's any way that Jackson Dart does not play. I think the big watch, if everybody wants to watch who's playing and who is lining up, check and see where Jaden Williams is and see if he is playing as well, because that is going to be a major factor in this ballgame. Anyway, when we come back, we will talk all about the college football playoff and where Ole Miss sits at the moment. Anyway, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're just getting started. We run down the college football playoff rankings and the games that might matter for Ole Miss fans after the Egg Bowl tonight. We talk about that next as well. Locked On has launched its first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national news shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming YouTube channel. Unbelievably cool stuff. Now, when you look at this situation that Ole Miss is in and with the playoffs, these are the playoff rankings. I just took this graphic from On3. On3's graphic is really good. Whoever made that should be very proud. But this is what the college football playoff rankings look like in week 13. And this is important because this is the week where if Ole Miss needs something to happen, this is the week where something's going to happen, if that makes sense. I mean, other than Louisville, who's 2 spots above Ole Miss, there's not really an opportunity for stuff to happen ahead of them. So the games that Ole Miss needs to focus on, and Ole Miss fans need to focus on after the Egg Bowl, will involve Louisville and Kentucky. Kentucky has had Louisville's number over the past, 2 years, something like that. And because of that, it's one of those situations that I just kind of worry about exactly who they sit. Kentucky's currently in a 4.5-point favorite at Louisville. They're playing at what was, I think, Papa John's Stadium. I think there are other basketball arenas like the KFC Yum Center, and they have Papa John's Stadium. They're like the poster child for obese children, the Louisville Cardinals, apparently. But that is a game that if Kentucky can get over on them, that is a chance for Ole Miss to move up 1 spot. Now, with the ACC, it would behoove Ole Miss if Louisville fell down outside of Ole Miss and Florida State not make the playoffs. That probably is something that would be ideal. Honestly, if both of those happen, it looks like Ole Miss might end up in an Access Bowl as well. I think Ole Miss needs Tulane to win football games, period. Tulane needs to be all right. They're number 23, and Liberty's number 25. Jerry Kill could do everybody a big favor by beating Liberty this weekend, but otherwise Tulane needs to continue to roll a little bit. Ole Miss needs that ranked game to where they can keep moving up as well. And also that's a team that Ole Miss can't be matched up with in a bowl game. Ole Miss can't rematch with Tulane. Texas can't rematch with Alabama. You can't have rematches in this game. Missouri and Arkansas, Sam Pittman is in a situation to where he has been retained and everybody is excited of everything that's going on. So it's a possibility. Whenever you need a prayer 4th and 17 to beat the Florida Gators to where they just didn't cover Luther Burden, any game should be problematic, especially against a team that honestly played Alabama pretty well in Tuscaloosa, played them better than Ole Miss did, played Ole Miss pretty well. These are top 10 teams. They played LSU pretty well. If you look at the top 14 that they went in there, Arkansas has played pretty well in those games, but they also got boat raced against Auburn, so we'll have to see exactly what happens in that game. And then you have Penn State, which honestly has a really similar resume to the Ole Miss Rebels. I don't expect Penn State to drop down. Penn State's only 2 losses are against Michigan and Ohio State. Ole Miss's only 2 losses are against Georgia and Alabama. It's kind of a 6-1, half a dozen of another. Ohio State and Michigan, if team could win, whoever wins that game probably needs to really win, if that makes sense. Just really completely boat race the other team and knock them down a little bit, because that'll affect Penn State's strength of schedule, because they've lost at number 2 and against number 3. That's what they're sitting right now as far as losses go. You'd like to see Michigan or Ohio State drop down a little bit. But those are the big games this weekend that Ole Miss fans should be paying attention to. Oregon State versus Oregon. I don't know if Oregon's going to be able to really necessarily slip down, by getting beat by Oregon State. And I don't know if Oregon State would jump Ole Miss by winning this game. So that's an interesting situation. And I'm curious about Alabama and Auburn, mainly because of style points. They're obviously trying to keep Alabama at 8 and away from the playoff. They do not want to put Alabama in the playoff this year for whatever reason. I'm not 100% sure why, but they just don't want to do it. All right, we're going to get into your chat right now and find out exactly what everyone is doing and how they look at what's going on as well. So we got Tim Skelton saying, hotty toddy. Mr. Willis, hotty toddy from San Antonio. Yes, everybody put into the chat, if you don't mind, where you're watching from. Just like that, this is going to be a thing on our videos moving forward. I always want to know where you're watching from, because not everybody can go to games, and that doesn't make you any less of a fan. So if you're fired up, like we all are, to talk about Ole Miss sports, put your location in the chat. Will says, hotty toddy from NOLA. And G210 man said, I don't know about y'all, but this Rev is hype and ready to go. Happy Thanksgiving all. Yeah, I've been really on pins and needles all day today. I want to see how the stadium looks for Ole Miss fans. Is Ole Miss fans going to have their normal allotment of 5,000 people? Because the normal Road Rebels, you can kind of count on them being wherever they need to be. But is it going to be 7? Is it going to be 8? Is it going to be 10? What is it going to look like in the stadium, especially with them being a massive ticket jump kind of a week and a half ago? There's a lot of coincidences that I'm interested in this game. Josh McNatt says, hotty toddy, the Golden Ed returns to Oxford. I look for the O&D to show out. I look for special teams as well. I think Fraser Mason is going to be a big key. I think Mississippi State needs to return on something other than an offensive touchdown tonight. For this to be a real game, they need a kick return for a touchdown. They need a defensive score. They need something like that. G210 man says, get our lines to play lights out like early in the season. Joshua Triplet says, can't wait for them to post a new graphic updating how long their bowl appearance streak is in January. They'll finish 5-8. That actually very well could possible. I don't think that if they go 5-7, they're going to a bowl game, because in previous years, if you're 5-7, they automatically go to the APR games. This year, the first choice after the bowl eligible teams is James Madison. The second choice is Jacksonville State. And then the APR hits. So there has to be at least 3 spots not taken in a bowl game for Mississippi State to even APR. It's going to be James Madison and Jack State. And honestly, I think James Madison's going to be in it. Garvin Keene, throw out the records in the Egg Bowl. Don't believe the hype. No, I just do not believe in throw out the records. I will never believe in that. I am a talent wins football games. And the only way it doesn't is if you don't play well. Mike Vandegrift says, hotty toddy. Coach Ken, a hotty toddy. And James Hall, the only time we should go for it on fourth down is if we are inside State's 10-yard line with 1 yard or less to go. Otherwise, kick field goals and punt. Yes, I am team every possession ends in a kick tonight. Do not give them artificial momentum and artificial motivation in a game, in a rivalry game where motivational swings are going to be so pronounced. So be careful about that. Joshua Tripwood says, hotty toddy from Utah. Hotty toddy, Joshua. And let's see. We got Tim Skelton watching from McCarley, Mississippi. I don't know if I've heard of McCarley. I grew up in Mississippi, spent most of my life there. I don't know where McCarley is. Let me know where that is. Garvin Keene says, from South Haven. John Words from Wichita Falls, Texas. I'm going to assume that John is in the Air Force. Correct me if I'm wrong. Larry Fletcher in Panama City, Florida. I like it. Anybody that's on a panhandle, I'm all for it. Whit Deming, Germantown, Tennessee, Memphis area. We have Bradley Edwards in Alabama. Coach Ken says Rebels by 28, run it up. Honestly, if they win by 28, they probably didn't run it up in a situation like this, because I think this game is either going to be really close to the end or really much a blowout at the end. I think those are the two options in this game. I said 38-14. That's on the ballpark of what I think is acceptable as a mid-range. Something to pay attention to. Mike Vandegrift is from Mississippi. Thank you, Mike. James Hall, hotty toddy from Brookhaven. Brookhaven, Mississippi, ready for the Egg Bowl. They're Old Brook, by the way. They're high school. They have the script helmet that says Old Brook on the side. It's pretty interesting. I think that may be, I don't know if that's Covington County or Lincoln County, but thanks for watching very much, James. Jay Cannon from Lumberton. Like I said, I've been through Lumberton a couple of times going down. I started out college at William Carey. So I've been down that corridor 49 in that Hattiesburg area quite a bit. Oh, this was pretty cool. Big L is hotty toddy from Cebu, the Philippines. What? Thanks for watching, man. Tim Skelton with the poor little Bulldogs laughing. He's feeling it. He's feeling it. Canu 2U from Amory, Mississippi. Tim Skelton is in Carroll County. That's where that is. JP Solomon's in Lucedale, Mississippi. That's George County. Thank you very much for watching. And Jay Cannon says we need to put our foot on the gas the whole game against Mississippi State, and I agree. That is going to be a necessity, especially when you're trying to win a beauty contest against Penn State, Missouri, and Louisville. Whenever those teams are kind of the cluster that you're actually competing against, you need to have style points in this game. So I expect Lane Kiffin to kind of go. Tim Skelton says it's 10 minutes from Winona. No, okay, I know where you are now. I've got that. John Ward says I was in the Air Force and I came back to Wichita Falls. Been an Ole Miss fan since '68. Anyway, thank you, John, very much. I just knew Wichita Falls was an Air Force area. That's what I knew about that. David Gibson, Alabama is at 8 because there are 5 undefeated Power 5 teams and they lost to Texas. Oregon's only lost by 3. Is at Washington. At best, Alabama would be 7. Okay, David, I understand. Everybody gets all of that, okay? Everybody understands what the logic is for what they did. But here's the problem. Whenever Alabama is sitting here going, because Alabama right now is one of the best 4 college football teams in the country, because they say that either eye test matters or it doesn't matter depending on how they want to do it. There's inconsistency with how they look at teams. If you want the 4 best teams in the college football playoff, you put Alabama in it because they're playing better than anybody at the moment. If it is all analytics based, Missouri and Louisville have no business being in the top 10 because they don't have the schedule and the analytics to back that up. So inside the top 10, like 8, 9, and 10, you have one person that is being viewed completely on analytics, and you have another 2 teams that's completely on eye test, and there's inconsistencies. And whenever that happens, there's going to be a problem. Creedy F. Baby says, Birmingham, Alabama. Shocking, I know. Hey, Birmingham, Alabama watching anything to do with football is not shocking. Blake Jolly, hotty toddy from New Albany, Mississippi. Will, hotty toddy to my wife's fan in the Hernando Eudora. I'm assuming that might be Eupora and Oxford, but it might be Eudora. G210 man, John Ward, appreciate your service. USAF family here too. Go Rebs. And I'll say obligatory go Navy. Let's see. Right there. Yeah. Patrick Kellum, hotty toddy from Panama City Beach. It's the second Panama City that has popped up in this chat. And Stephen, when are we going to start talking about new signees for the Rebel? Honestly, we're going to start talking about recruiting, both the portal and the upcoming high school recruiting class. Honestly, Monday. It's going to be Bowls, New Year's 6. It's going to be recruiting and roster development because of the 12-team 2024 playoff. And we're going to be talking men's basketball and a little bit of Coach Yo. I mean, Coach Yo deserves to be talked about as much as anybody at this point. David Hyde from Russellville, Arkansas. Hotty toddy. Thank you, David, for watching the show. Josh Ferguson, hotty toddy from Calhoun City. There's so many Ole Miss fans that are popping up all over the place. It's going to be really, really interesting to go. It's going to be pretty fired up. And I am not 100% convinced that Ole Miss isn't going to put 10,000 people in Davis Wade Stadium. They might not, but all the information that's been coming out with Mississippi State, it's an interim coach. That they have not looked particularly well. That there's so many things where they're expecting to get beat and the stadium fills up and up and up and up. It either means more than absolutely anything to Mississippi State, which we all believe that happens. That wouldn't surprise anybody. Or this is the trend breaker where Ole Miss fans start going down to Davis Wade Stadium. That is going to be very interesting indeed. Let's see. Ron Hurley with LFG. Fins up. We got this. Creedy F baby. Happy Thanksgiving and good luck to the Rebs. Tim Skelton, Rebel Nation is alive and well. Tim Skelton, Will Walker, Howard play any tonight. Okay. I understand that is likely a joke. Okay, I get that completely. But you can't guarantee that Walker Howard's not going to play. Even if you think that this game is going to be whatever the score is going to be, even if the game is close, in a game against Texas A&M, all 3 quarterbacks played one snap. Sanders, Howard, and Dart were on the field at the same time on 4th down. So I don't think it is a 0% chance that Walker Howard plays, even if it's a close game, if that makes sense. Graves Baker has it at 41-17. I've got it 38-14. So we're kind of like right church, wrong pew in this game. Tim Skelton, he's laughing. He's having a good time. Tim Skelton is having fun with emoticons. He is ready to go. He is completely Egg Bowl ready at the moment. Now, when we come back, we will put the finishing touches on this game. This is going to be a short live stream. We're going to do a post game to where we're either completely elated like we have been known to be, or we are breaking out the flamethrower and we are going to burn everything down. So still more to come on Locked On Ole Miss, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We keep it in the chat. And we also find out what you're looking forward to seeing tonight. And we tell you what is up next for Ole Miss football and why, honestly, it's good that this game is on Thanksgiving, because it's going to lead to a whole bunch of games that Ole Miss are interested in Friday and Saturday as well. So stick around for that. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen of the day. And shout out to the everydayers. Locked On has launched a first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. For your second listen, go to Locked On Sports Today and YouTube and subscribe to be the first ever national sports 24/7 stream channel. Be part of history. This is an interesting situation, okay? This is a interesting situation. I'm just going to put this up for a second, Josh. I'll get to you in just a second. What does Ole Miss and what should they expect after this game? If Ole Miss does what they're expected to do, let's say that the point spread is exactly where it needs to be and Ole Miss wins 38-28, which if that happens, honestly, not many people will be happy in this chat. And let's just be real about that. But Ole Miss wins that game. They get the W and go on, and they get to watch Missouri and Arkansas. And we watch that game for how much it could mean. Saturday, you watch Louisville and Kentucky. You are a huge Michigan State fan. Come Saturday, all of these things will be major issues for Ole Miss football this weekend. And because Ole Miss gets to play on Thanksgiving, potentially for the last time, because I am of the opinion that next year this game is going to be Texas versus Texas A&M, because Texas and Texas A&M has always been Thanksgiving. And this being the eyeballs that people are going to have on it, expect Ole Miss probably on Friday or potentially on Saturday. I do hope that Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl does become a Friday type game, but you don't know because CBS is losing that game. What is Disney going to do? Of course, ABC and ESPN is losing like Nebraska and Iowa. So I guess Ole Miss could move over to that channel as well on the Friday. But I do think on Thursday, this is the last chance this is going to happen. So everybody, whether you're for it or against it, enjoy it. The setup that Ole Miss has had is nothing but good. Anyway, those are the games that Ole Miss fans need to watch this weekend if Ole Miss goes to chalk against Mississippi State. If Ole Miss loses the state, like I said, I'm breaking out the flamethrower on the postgame show, and nobody's going to be watching that anyway. But we're going to talk about what's going on. And tomorrow, by the way, the morning show, tomorrow morning show will be the post game that airs immediately after the game. But tomorrow night, the 7:00 p.m. show, I'm going to be on with Tom Vanderford, and we're going to be doing another reaction to the Mississippi State game. So you'll have the post game for an instant overreaction, and you'll have Tom Vanderford whenever you have 24 hours to kind of stew on everything that has happened as well. Josh Ferguson says, I just want to play good without all the penalties. I definitely understand that. Scotty Kaiser says, I am ready to rumble. Tim Skelton, 38-14, 41-17, or 56-10, you pick. I think he's saying that Ole Miss can kind of name his score. David Gibson, Louisville should not be in the top 10. Louisville and Oklahoma are only top 15 teams the only top 15 teams that have lost to non-top 15 teams. I agree with that entirely. John Words, the Rebels 49-10 over Mississippi State. Will with, yes, we need to cut down on the penalties. I agree with that entirely. Scotty Kaiser, I hope to see my daughter and son-in-law in the stands because my wife is keeping their kids in Houston. Congratulations. My aunt, my uncle, half of my family, it seems like, live in the greater Houston area. You might know them. I'm not going to put that on the spot. Tim Skelton, poor Scotty. Jay Cannon, Ole Miss 45, State 10. Real quick, if you haven't put your pick in the chat, go ahead and put your pick in there, and we're going to get out of here pretty quick to get ready for the Egg Bowl, which should be a lot of fun tonight. So go ahead and put your pick for the score if you have not already. Joshua Tricklet, if you offered me one guaranteed random loss per season in exchange for the Egg Bowl never being on Thanksgiving again, I'd honestly have to consider it. We're going to have to disagree that time, Josh. Scotty Kaiser, home alone on Thanksgiving, rooting for the Rebels. You know, you can be as loud as you want to be, Scotty, and that's not a necessarily horrible thing. Josh Ferguson, we've converted way too many third and more than 10s this year for my liking. That is because this team, they don't believe in staying on schedule. They're almost so deep play dependent. They just kind of are what they are. It's one of the reasons the game versus Iowa, if that happens in the Citrus Bowl, is going to be so interesting. You have one of the most explosive offense in the country going against the least explosive offense in the country and the potentially best defense. Interesting. Mike Vandergriff, I know there's an Ole Miss fan club in Arizona. There is. What's the uniform color tonight? Navy helmets, white jerseys, gray pants. And there's a lot of red. Red is the accent color tonight as well. Will says, my wife Mary says 45-24 Ole Miss. I like it, Will. I like it a lot. I hope everybody is ready for a good football game. We only get this game once a year. This game is a major, major deal for Ole Miss. And people are going to say all the time, and they remember what it was. They remember how toxic it was and things like that. And you hear people all the time de-emphasize the Egg Bowl. And the reality of it is some people just want to de-emphasize things that might be 50-50 because they just can't stand losing this game. But if you have a situation where this game means as much as it should, and it should mean a whole heck of a lot. Now, I will not say that you should do everything and put it all in there and base yourself off of Mississippi State. I think two things are true in this situation. First of all, the Egg Bowl is the most important game on Ole Miss's schedule. It always will be. There's no sense fighting it. Embrace it. Now, don't do anything stupid. Handle it the right way, but it is the most important game on the schedule, and it has been 40 years despite what people have said. The second thing is, this game needs to be a guaranteed, predetermined victory for Ole Miss, much in the way of Georgia and Georgia Tech, Alabama and Auburn, Tennessee and Vanderbilt. That is what your goal should be in this super important football game. If both of those things are true, Ole Miss is going to be putting up at 11s and 12s in the win column, and the program's going to be exactly where you want to be. You can't base yourself on just being better than State. You need to really respect this game, and you need to do the things you need to do to win this game. But you also need to realize you can't really base the results as anything that you can come on. It's interesting to me. Tim Sculton with a happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And it's true. Rodney Yarbaugh says, I think it's 42-17. You know, believe it or not, I've heard that quite a bit. And total points, Ole Miss are 62, Ole Miss 52, State 10. Brookhaven is in Lincoln County. Believe it or not, James, before I get out of here, I went to McGee High School, and my area junior college at that time that I had to deal with was Co-Lin. So I knew that Brookhaven was either in Copiah or Lincoln County because I'd been over to Co-Lin a couple of times just when I was trying to play football back in the day. I hope everybody has a good day. I hope this is fun. I hope you enjoy this. I hope you tune in immediately after the game to hear me unbelievably elated in our instant overreaction or having an absolute flamethrower on what happened that night. Because if Ole Miss loses, this is a no excuses game. It's just not. This is not a game that's even acceptable to lose the game. But I know people are going to say, throw the records out the window and all of that stuff. That's a hedge. That is a hedge. Win the football game. That's all you have to do. If you win the football game, you're at least in the Citrus Bowl, and you might be in the New Year's Six. If you lose the game, you're in the ReliaQuest Bowl. Now, granted, that's probably against Notre Dame, but that's another story altogether. Either way, it's 50 miles from my house. I'll be all right. But I would like to see Ole Miss fans get to go to New Year's Six bowl games because of the prestige of it. So I hope everybody has a good game tonight, enjoys it. Tune in after it's over on the Locked On Ole Miss YouTube channel for the instant overreaction. Thank you on all the mediums that you are watching on, whether it be the SEC After Dark channel on Twitch or on YouTube as well. So thank you very much for that. But Before we get out of here, I do want to let everybody know, thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen. Every dayers tomorrow, we will talk to Tom Vanderford for some additional reaction to tonight's post game, and we'll take the weekend off. And we're not going to do anything Saturday night. And other than the interview with Tom on Friday, I'm not going to do anything there. It is recharge time. We're getting ready for recruiting. We're getting ready for bowl season, and we are getting ready for basketball. But we're going to recharge a little bit. For your second listen, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. For your second listen, go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 stream channel. For those of you on YouTube, we'll send you there. Now, enjoy this weekend. Happy Thanksgiving. And of course, hotty toddy.